I think that people like me, my generation, have been impacted on by a number of different leaders. I'm still from a generation that was impacted quite heavily by political leadership. And political leadership that I grew up with was still Churchillian. There was still, after the war, there was this sense of leadership which was done by either army generals or strong political leaders. So people in my generation were often influenced by those types of leaders from the political side, not the business side. Well, I'm part of a very small unit that works within a very large unit because Investing Cumbria Limited is wholly owned by Cumbria County Council. I think the public sector has come to understand that there is a need for leadership within those organisations. So far, in local government circles, management and degrees of management are layered and are almost part of the ethos of running the public sector. Now and in the future, we're going to actually have some of those management theories challenged, and they're going to be done by leaders. Now, those leaders are going to come from the younger, tigerish population that we have, not the existing management structure that people are used to be dealing with. So I think it's very important that, for instance, the Centre for Leadership Performance is in the vanguard of showing how leadership can lead to change in management practices in the future. There is a huge difference between leadership and management. I think we've seen today when we've had Duncan Bannatyne here at the Energies building that he is very much of the leadership mode. I think a leader surrounds himself with good managers. Yes. I think that's quite clearly the message that came out today. If you have a good management team around you, and it can be multi-layered within that, can be in very big business or even in a small business where you have a critical person who's going to manage the business for you. You still have to have a leader, and that sometimes that person is the same person, but often the leader is somebody actually who can't sit behind a desk and can't do the micromanagement, can't do the 24/7 aspects of business, but needs to go on and look for new business, looks for new ways of dealing with people, looks for new customers to engage with, and particularly looks at diversification. I think the biggest challenge facing leaders in Cumbria today is their acceptance by the indigenous management population that we have. And also I think that youth is an issue around this. People assume that unless you're middle 40s and beyond, that you don't have the experience or capability to be a leader. And I'm not one of those people. I think that we have to inspire our young people to meet their aspirations. I think that what we're trying to do here in this part of Cumbria is excellent. We're in a building now, Nucleus, where there are a number of young people that I haven't seen before that are clearly going to be our leaders for the future. There are people working in the Nucleus in the trades and crafts. That those two will be coming through in the next few years, and they can be our leaders and take us perhaps in a different direction, one that is not stereotypical. I think that first of all we have to embrace the ethos of leadership, what it's all about, realise that it can be across a broad range of structures, a broad range of people's definitions. It's perhaps for everyone, a bit like lifelong learning. I think leadership can be part of that mainstream of teaching that says you can lead. I think the speaker that we had today, Duncan Bannatyne, gave a good example of somebody who had gone through the first 30 years of his life thinking he was fairly meaningless and had nothing to offer, and suddenly realised that through effort and willingness and determination that he could lead first of all himself, then a number of people in the same path as him to a better future. Yeah, I think it's slightly chicken and egg, but I think I'm one of these people that says, well, if we put the facility in here, then we put the expertise here, then people will gravitate towards it. There are a number of people in this room today who are in the nuclear sector, and clearly a lot of those people have embraced that because they've gone through that role and position and training themselves. What we also have, though, is a large number of people from the business community in Cumbria who are not related to the nuclear sector, but are running their own businesses. Now, some of these people in this room are micro businesses, small businesses below 25, say, in terms of employment, or medium-sized businesses up to, say, about 250 employees. And all of those people, I think, have learned something in the last the lecture today, but also in the last few weeks about succession for management, leadership within their organisation, looking at actually developing their people. Otherwise, if you don't develop their people, chances are they might leave and go to an employer that's actually embracing those types of issues for the future. I think that it is a bit like lifelong learning. I think you're never too young to, or even too old to learn aspects of leadership. I think sometimes they can be refined. I try to do things in a fairly sort of congenial way. I have a broad interface with a number of people across the private sector and public sector, and I like to think that's one of my strengths. And part of that leadership is actually trying to put people together where I know there's a good match, where there's a good contract between them, maybe personally, or in fact where there's a business opportunity, be it in the supply chain or looking at opportunities further downstream. But I think that everybody can be a leader far beyond retirement. There are people who are retired here today who are still leaders in the community. They may not be called that, they may not be elected to that role, but they are leaders. And I think that sometimes it's only in adversity when those traits actually come out. We've seen over the last year with the shootings, unfortunately, in West Cumbria, with the floods in Cockermouth where I live, that leaders emerge from those communities.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily elected by anybody or designated, but those leaders will arise. And I think that in the workforce that we're trying to grow in Cumbria in the future, those leaders will certainly arise. And more importantly, when we go into the schools, I think we should be using the young people that people in schools can relate to actually go and be those mentors, to say, you too can be our leaders for the future. Because when you're 14 or 15, you're formulating your own ideas. You may not be in a position to lead for 10 years after that at least, but I think that you should be in a position to talk to the mentors that are in this program and learning and leadership performance in the future, and actually get some ideas from them to get that sort of aspirational level up and self-esteem to say, yeah, I too can be a leader for the future.